Hello everyone. I want to take some time today to talk about solving by using square root property. And again, I want to be clear that these two equations are the same. Again, our rule is what I do to one side. I can move the 9 opposite side, opposite sign, and make that equation. So you got to see these as the same. And again, guys, x squared means there's two solutions to this equation, all right? And we're going to talk about factoring, all right? I hope you see the difference of two squares here. We're going to talk about that versus that today, all right? And this is a review video. If you're learning this for the first time, this is probably not the right video for you. Now, I got to stress this. We got to see that it only works with two terms, all right? So when I have an equation like x squared minus 5x equals 0, you have three terms. 1, 2, and guys, 0 is a term. Alright, so this cannot be solved right now unless you do guess and check. Now, if you factor it, you see x is common, and you bring this. I want to be clear that once you factor this, this becomes a product. That's one term, this is two terms. One term on each side, and now all of a sudden we can use our zero product theorem. A times b equals 0. So either a is 0, which means x is 0, or b is 0. And that means this, which means the set is 0 and 5. Again, if I come down to this next one, x squared equals positive 8x minus 15. Guys, three terms. 1, 2, 3. And then if I put them all on one side, holy cow, and that's what you always got to do because we need 0. 0's the hero. Now there's four terms, but you take the trinomial and it factors, and all of a sudden it's gone from four terms to two terms. And then you can say zero product property, and you can set these equal to 0, and you can get x is equal to, well, 3 makes the first equation 0, and 5 makes the other equation 0. All right? Now,
sounds like you're on board with
it. When there's only two terms, there's a special thing we can do. And what I mean that is that two terms where there is a squared single product, okay? This last one was two terms, but there's no way to take the square root of x minus 5 and x minus 3. They're not the same, all right? But we have a repeat, so we can guess and check two solutions, order 2, and I think everybody sees 3 as an answer here. Well, you know the negative works, and again, we could factor x squared equals 9, move the 9, get 0, difference of two squares, and get plus or minus 3. But in this case, because it's a single thing, and it's squared, we can take the square root of both sides. And you get a plus minus because of this, guys. So I always talk about when you take the square root, you get a plus minus. Alright, it's because of this difference. Alright, so again, if we look at these, and I have 4 examples here. You probably can do these quite quickly. And I'm going to start quadrant 1, go quadrant 2, 3, 4 for my 4 examples. And again, when it's 16, you probably can guess and check. We know 4 times 4 is 16, but guys, 2 answers. So when you take the square roots, you get plus or minus the square root of 16. What times what makes u squared? U. And everybody, this works here because we know that you could write the square root as the half power, which 2 times a half is u to the 1. Now I'm not going to get into that, okay, today, but then you get plus or minus 4. Or we could write it as negative 4 and 4. Quadrant 2, again, a pretty simple one for us. We probably can guess and check, but I will take the square roots. Plus or minus square root of 25 is 5. Square root of a squared is a. Now the ones that seem to get us, all right? Guys, I don't know the number off the top of my head that makes 7. It's 2.6. But if we take the square roots and we write the plus minus, when we can't simplify it, we can just write it. And it is plus or minus square root of 7. And guys, the check here is this. The check is this. Crap squared equals 7. If I put a negative square root of 7, 2 negatives make a positive. Guys, it's negative square root of 7 times negative square root of 7. 2 negatives make a positive. Square root of 7 is 7. We've checked our answer. Here it's y squared equals 3. And I get y equals plus or minus the square root of 3. Now, if that was a radical that could be reduced, if it was, x squared equaled 8, it would be x equals plus or minus the square root of 8 by taking the square root of both sides. And in my classroom, I would expect you guys to break that down and write square root of 4. So I would get x equals plus or minus 2 square roots of 2. Now, again, the square root method works with two terms. So start with that. Is it two terms? Yeah. Is it a single thing squared equals a single thing? The answer is yeah. So let's recall, we just did this problem over on the last page. We have u squared equals 16. We knew it came u equals plus or minus 4. Well, everybody, this crap here is like a big U. Okay? So when you take the square root of both sides, what times what makes x plus 2 squared? X plus 2 times x plus 2 makes x plus 2 squared. And I get plus or minus 4. Now x is not alone, but now it's x to the 1 power. I did the same thing to both sides. And I get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4. Guys, the plus or minus means this. I'm going to write it all the way out. Negative 2 plus 4 and negative 2 minus 4. So guys, there's two answers here. I expect you to get to 2 and negative 6. Okay? And again, the key here is this was not a problem like this. Okay? Not two things. And guys, if this is 8, this is not a solvable problem for us. This would require us to do a lot more work, okay? Because we need 0 to solve a factor problem. But in our case, we don't need that this time. Alright, so I have 3 examples which I'm going to roll through quite quickly to end the video. If this is a good chance to pause and try them, alright? It is junk squared. One thing squared equals one thing, two terms. Take the square root, so I get x minus 3 equals plus or minus square root of 16, we know is 4. 3 to the other side, I get 3 plus or minus 4. X equals 3 plus 4 is 7. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. On the next one, and again, this time, what times what makes x minus 2 squared? X minus 2. And again, guys, it starts with stuff squared. Plus or minus, I'm going to drop the plus. When I move 2 to the other side, guys, this is another thing. Guys, are these like terms? The answer is no. So I get x equals. Now, I could write plus or minus 7, square root of 7, plus 2. But guys, we've always put integers first. Make the radical ride in the back. Alright? Last one, x plus half squared equals 18. I don't care about the half. It's crap squared equals stop one term. So again, what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I get x plus half equals plus or minus the square root of 18. Alright, 2 ways to do this. I move the half first, personally. So I subtract half on both sides. I write the number first, negative half, plus or minus square root of 18, not like terms. Now it's going to be a reduction. Hopefully you see 18 is 9 and 2. That's equivalent, right? Can you do that? And we know that 9 is, square root of 9 is positive 3. We don't know square root of 2. And that's the answer. Again, square root method, alright, not to be confused with factoring. It has to be one thing squared. Number one thing, guys, you know there's 2 answers. Also not to be confused with everybody, you don't take the square root if there's a square root. Problems like this require us to square, alright? So keep at it, DT. This was for you, alright? Keep practicing.